The political news cycle is fast, and keeping up can be overwhelming. Trying to find different perspectives worth your time is even harder. That's why we have scoured the internet for political writing from the right and left that you might not have seen. Has this series exposed you to new ideas? Tell us how. Email us at ourpicks@nytimes.com. For an archive of all the partisan writing roundups, check out Our Picks. From the right, Paul Manafort left a federal courthouse in Washington after pleading not guilty to charges leveled by the Russia Special Counsel. Tazos Catapodi's European press photo agency Erik Erikson in Fox News. As long as Robert Mueller fails to turn up evidence to show Russia stole the election, the American left will continue to believe in an elaborate conspiracy. It is far easier to believe that than to believe Hillary Clinton ran a terrible campaign. As far as Mr. Erikson is concerned, news of Paul Manafort's indictment does not damage the Trump administration. Even though some critics of the president may wish to tie Mr. Manafort's baggage to President Trump, he writes, the federal prosecutors are mostly interested in financial malfeasance before the campaign. As for theories that the indictment is intended to encourage Mr. Manafort to testify against other members of the Trump campaign, Mr. Erikson argues if Vladimir Putin really were involved, the chances of Manafort squealing on anybody are really low, and there is no evidence that there is anything to squeal about. Read more. Timothy P. Carney in the Washington Examiner. Manafort's shadiness makes Trump look bad because Trump hired him during the campaign. But Manafort's shadiness also means it's less likely he's being squeezed in pursuit of someone higher up. He may be being indicted simply because federal investigators think he broke the law in a significant and deliberate way. Mr. Carney reminds his readers that an indictment is not a guilty verdict and that Mr. Manafort and his associate, Rick Gates, who is also indicted, should be afforded the courtesy of being presumed innocent until proven guilty. That said, he also proposes that the simplest explanation of any wrongdoing as it relates to Mr. Manafort and Mr. Trump is that Manafort wanted to peddle to the Russians his Trump access. Read more. David French in National Review. This is not the beginning of the end of the Trump-Russia investigation, it's the end of the beginning. Mr. French, a frequent critic of the president from the right, writes that when it comes to the investigation being led by Robert S. Mueller III, the public is still like the proverbial blind man feeling the elephant. In other words, there is a lot that we don't know. He also adds when it comes to Manafort, Trump didn't drain the swamp. He hired the swamp. All of which cements in his mind the need for the special counsel and his investigation to continue. Read more. From the left. The special counsel, Robert S. Mueller III, on Capitol Hill in June. Doug Mills, The New York Times. Joan Walsh in The Nation. Clearly, the Papadopoulos guilty plea is today's worst news for the Trump administration. But the Manafort and Gates indictments aren't exactly good news. Ms. Walsh is careful to point out that the indictments on Monday didn't provide an obvious through-line to trouble, let alone impeachment, for Trump. Perhaps, she speculates, details in the guilty plea entered by George Papadopoulos, a former foreign policy advisor to Mr. Trump during the campaign, are meant to induce Mr. Manafort to also plead guilty, and flip on other campaign officials. Read more. Ryan Cooper in The Week. So what happens if Trump fires Mueller and issues blanket pardons to all of his associates? Finding enough Republicans to vote to impeach, much less convict in the Senate, is not going to happen. Mr. Cooper is worried that Mr. Trump may try to fire Mr. Mueller before his investigation goes any further. What's needed, he argues, is a group of Republicans, as few as 3 senators, or a couple dozen GOP lawmakers in the House, to protect the investigation and the special counsel's independence while incurring the wrath of Fox News and the rest of the conservative propaganda apparatus, which treats any opposition to Trump as blasphemy and treachery. Read more. Christian Farias in New York Magazine. The special counsel delivered. Mr. Farias says he is encouraged by the news on Monday, writing that Donald Trump had no idea what just hit him. He outlines the damning case against Mr. Papadopoulos and notes that the FBI investigated those acts before Mr. Mueller was appointed to lead the investigation in May. That, he argues, undercuts Trump's repeated claims that the special counsel is on a witch hunt and that collusion never occurred. Read more, __________ from the center. Harry Litman and Mark Greenberg in the Los Angeles Times. If, however, the president were to pardon Manafort, Manafort's lawyers would still need to ask the court to dismiss the charges. And at that point, Mueller could try to make the case that the pardon was invalid. It would be an unusual argument, but the unusual has become routine in the Trump era. What is stopping Mr. Trump from taking the advice of the Wall Street Journal's editorial page and issuing a blanket pardon for anyone who may end up in Mr. Mueller's crosshairs? Mr. Littman and Mr. Greenberg, both law professors at UCLA, explain why this option may not be as appealing as it first appears. Read more, ____________. Chris Cillizza in CNN. Why, if there was nothing to hide about his relationship, or attempted relationship with Russian officials, would Papadopoulos feel the need to put himself in serious legal jeopardy by lying about the timing of his conversations with the professor? Of the two big announcements from the special counsel's office on Monday, Mr. Cillizza finds the news of Mr. Papadopoulos' plea to be far more damaging to the Trump administration than news of Mr. Manafort's and Mr. Gaddis' indictment. Read more, ___________. Noah Feldman in Bloomberg. Trump could reasonably conclude that his best approach is to tough it out. The Manafort story raises the possibility that he could survive. The more complicated Mr. Mueller's narrative is, the easier it is for Mr. Trump to obfuscate and avoid serious threat of impeachment. The Manafort and Gates indictments show the game's afoot, he writes. Now we will need to keep an eye on whether the game can be made comprehensible to the American people. Read more, _________. Finally, from our readers. Joe in New York City. As a Republican who voted for President Trump, I question his judgment in never associating with Paul Manafort. This is a disgrace, and reflects badly on them both. Read more about what New York Times readers had to say about Mr. Manafort's indictment, ___________. Want the partisan writing roundup in your inbox? Sign up for the morning briefing newsletter or the What We're Reading newsletter. Have thoughts about this collection? Email feedback to ourpicks@nytimes.com.